information about the person. So where our stress is, God is engaged in revealing himself and not so much information about himself. God wants us to love him, to be close to him, and to do that we need a model, we need a personal seeing the modeling before us, and this is the function of Jesus Christ.
Just one word before I turn to Shakir. I don't see how that relates to the issue. Again, when somebody plainly says, this is my opinion.
Can I respond?
I just wanted to say something.
Just a second, please. Let me.
I think I'll
what
let
did you say, Dr.
I want to respond to what Dr. Badawi has been saying before something else is thrown out.
Okay, go ahead, please.
You've given a series of passages here. Let me just focus on two of them. When Paul in 1 Corinthians 7:25 talks about my opinion, the mere fact that he felt it necessary to indicate that this was his personal opinion is to contrast it from Galatians 1:11, for example. I want you to know, my brothers, that the gospel I preach is not something that man made up. Galatians 1:11, I want you to know, brothers, that the gospel I preached is not something that man made up. I did not receive it from any man, nor was I taught it. Rather, I received it by revelation from Jesus Christ. So he's making a clear distinction between the times he is talking by revelation and the times that he is giving his own opinion. Now, as to preached my gospel, again, we have to look at the context of what Paul was dealing with. He was dealing with people who kept being troubled by Judaizers, kept being troubled by people who wanted to make the Christians follow the Jewish law as part of becoming a Christian. And so in Galatians, he says in Galatians 1:6, I am astonished that you are so quickly deserting the one who called you by the grace of God and are turning to a different gospel, which is really no gospel at all. And then, so this is what he means by my gospel, the gospel I preached, which I received, verse 11, from Jesus Christ. You are teaching something different, so it is my gospel which I received from Christ, and hence it is his gospel, as opposed to those of you who keep trying to bring the law into this and say you have to follow the Jewish law in order to be a Christian.
Okay, I think Jeffary was...
Yeah, this is just a comment. I think we all have to recognize that there were, even by that very statement that you quoted, that there were other gospels floating around. And they all claimed, or many of them claimed, to have revelational authority also. The Gnostic Gospels were famous for having to have some secret that only they got from Jesus Christ, and some secret doctrine that was revealed to them and not to the generality. For example, the recently discovered Gospel of Thomas. Well, so the only point I'm trying to make is that once again, you know, it comes back to the same point. Was Paul receiving direct revelation, or was he, revealing his own theology?
The distinction here is these Gnostic Gospels were, in fact, secret Gospels. Their intent was to just speak to the insiders.
But wasn't the Gospel of John thought perhaps to be a Gnostic Gospel by some?
Some earlier thought, but it is found to have the same ideas they thought were Gnostic are now seen to be Dead Sea Scrolls.
But there was a controversy for a while in the church.
But it is not a controversy anymore.
Now, yes.
So that what you have here, again, is you talk as though these were, well, previously you've talked about unknown writers. The great weight of biblical scholarship now is in pushing the biblical documents to a very early date in the time of the eyewitnesses and the Gospels by disciples, or in the case of Luke, one who was in close contact with Peter, who was a disciple. And so...
Could you quote us a source on that? Honestly,
Well, I'm in the seminary world. And
if you just give me one literal reference so I could just check.
When you say a literal reference, you see, I'm exposed to documents all the time and books all the time.
A journal, a book, just for my sake.
What does he want?
An author.
Well, let me refer to a commentary by Robert Gulick, Word Commentaries, first volume, Gospel of Mark, as a start on this, where he deals with many of these situations here. But
because your statement, Dr. Woodberry, I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
These Gnostic ones were
but your statement
not received by the great body of the church, and were secret. They weren't for the masses. They were for the. And these Gospels were that you might believe. These are for all.
No, I'm now getting back to the other point about these Gospels going back to eyewitness accounts and that their authors were eyewitnesses. That was a revelation to me because everything I've read on that in the library at the University of Kansas says quite the opposite, that they're most probably not eyewitness accounts, and there's no reason to believe that. So I was just wondering, since that seems to be the current weight of scholarship, I was wondering if you could just have given me some reference. But for now, I'll just have to take your word for it.
Thank you.
I was kind of surprised to hear that there are some secret Gospels or considered to be secrets, because if my memory serves me right, that Jesus, peace be upon him, said, I taught nothing in secret. Whatever he had to say, apparently he said it in the open market. So I'm not aware even that he had taught anything in secret, and that would be contradictory to his statement that he taught nothing.
We didn't say he taught in secret. We said there are certain Gospels that are Gnostic Gospels written by people who were teaching esoteric.
Well, I am
it has
kind
nothing to do with his teaching in secret.
I'm kind of glad that we clarified this one, that they are the ones that kept it in secret, and Jesus did not teach it to them in secret. It seems to me like the bulk of the Christian faith as it is practiced now, or as it being presented to us, especially from the Bible point of view, seems to be centered around what Paul had to say, because most 99% of the references that I have heard Galatians, Hebrew, and the other books, Corinthians, whatever Paul said, there was hardly anything that had been attributed again to what did Jesus himself said. In one part of Paul's letter, he claims revelation, like Dr. Woodberry had pointed out. In another part, he say, I received no revelation, like Dr. Badawi had pointed out. Yet, I'm not aware that there had been an article or a book that clearly defines what he claims to be revelation and what he claims to be his own opinion. And I think an article like that would be greatly helpful to the Muslims to find out what does Paul really claims to be revelation and what does Paul claims to be not to be revelation, and it is his own opinion. Reverend Chastain quoted to us from a John Hillcrest. I think he's from the Campus Crusade or something like that. But I like to quote from someone who is probably everyone can acknowledge his credentials. His name is Dr. Robert Funk. He is a current professor of religious studies at the University of Montana. He is a former professor at Harvard. So he is a big heavyweight here as far as theology is concerned. And nobody can dismiss him as a superficial Christian or a minority or a liberal or does not carry weight. He is a professor. He used to be a professor at Harvard. There was an article written about him in October 6, 1986 in the Chicago Tribune, and I just like to read directly from it without comments. And I'm quoting here. Many New Testament scholars, many here, not few, many New Testament scholars contend that much of the lore surrounding Jesus was inserted in manuscripts written after his death by zealous followers. Now, the article also quotes Dr.